Welcome back to Team Train for the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment. And now we're sort of moving into some more advanced GIS topics where we're moving beyond just looking at data and making maps, but we're really using the data for analysis. And I've entitled this lesson Geoprocessing Basics because we often have to prepare data before we can analyze it. And in our model flow chart, this is sort of in the data processing realm. So let's go into ArcMap. And I've got a example, again, from Getting to Know ArcGIS. This is from Chapter 11. And again, this is, I think, a pretty good example. It's a real-world sort of problem and application of GIS. And it lets us look at some of the geoprocessing functions that you'll use pretty frequently. And so just to get you oriented here, we're looking at a map. It looks very complicated, and I guess in some ways it really is. But it's a portion of the Tongass National Forest up in Alaska, which is heavily forested. And we just have one layer. It's called the stands layer. And each one of these little polygons in here is a different stand of trees that is administered by the National Forest Service. And I think the reason it looks so complicated is that the shapes are so irregular and there's so many of them. And I think that's due to the terrain. Now you can see that there are 5 different colors here. So I'm just going to open up the attribute table to get us oriented to what the data looks like, which is always a good idea when you're dealing with a new set of data. And you can see this is a polygon layer. And then we have these lease IDs. And you can see it's A and through A through F here. And so just like in the legend here, there is these have been displayed. The symbology is by category, and the category we're using is lease ID. So there's 5 lease areas. And you can see that, every stand, all those little polygons is given its own ID. And then somebody has determined the value per meter. I imagine rangers or surveyors went out there to look at, how old are the trees, what condition they're in, how many there are. And they placed a value per meter on the stand. And then the stand value here is the value of the whole stand. So you take the shape area in square meters here. I'll go up to the first one, and you multiply that by the value per meter, and that gives you the stand value. And this value is in millions of dollars. So this first one is only 1.00, but that really means it's a little bit over $1 million in value. So we're talking about a lot of value here. And this exercise is, you're supposed to imagine that you work for a lumber foresting operation, perhaps not the most ecological of jobs, but that's what it is. And what we really are after here is we want to know, which stand has the most value that we should go after and bid on. I'm going to close this table here. And so to do this, we're going to have to do some geoprocessing. And the geoprocessing that we want to do is we want to dissolve all of these different leases into the stands, right? So that we can sum up their total value. And ArcGIS has a load of geoprocessing tools. They're up here in this little icon, the Arc Toolbox. Open that up, and it's thinking about it. There it is. Okay, and there's actually, the Arc Toolbox is full of lots of different toolboxes, and there's even more than these. And when you open them up, there are tons of tools. Now, I happen to know that Dissolve is in data management tools, and so that's what I'm going to open. And then there's a bunch of smaller trays. And so like, I know it's in generalization. Now, I just happen to know that, right? Because dissolve is used quite frequently. If we go up here to geoprocessing, you can also find it up there because it is used so frequently. There it is, right? But if you can't find it, you can use your search tool over on the side here and search for it, and it will tell you how to find the dissolve tool. All right, so I'm going to open that up by double clicking on it. And what you'll see here is that these geoprocessing tools tend to have a fill in the blank kind of format to them, and they usually are interested in like, what features do you want to use? We only have one, so it's pretty easy to figure out. In this case, we want to take the stands layer, so I'm going to select that as our input feature, and it's thinking about it, and there we go. And then it says, okay, where do you want to put the output feature after we process it, right? And so I'm going to put it in my ArcGIS, getting to know ArcGIS, my data folder. It has a database in there, and we'll just save this one as we'll call it leases, right? Because we want to get all the leases here. Okay, save that. Now, there's some optional fields which we're going to specify in this case. So the first one is, what fields do you want to use to dissolve? We're going to use lease ID because we're interested in the leases, right? And so we want to group them together by stand. So that's why I'm selecting lease ID. And then if I scroll down a little ways, you can also specify statistics field. And in this case, I'm just going to go down in here, and we're going to look at stand value is our variable. It puts it in the field here, and then it says, well, what kind of statistic type do you want? And you got to click in the box, you get a little drop down, and so yeah, I want the sum. So I want to sum up all the stand values, but and when we dissolve these lease IDs. Okay, that should do it. So I'm going to hit OK here, and we'll let it run. And it might, this is a pretty big file, so it may take a moment. And you'll notice we got a little box down here with a green check mark. That means it was successful. You can click on it, it'll open it up here, and it'll give you some information about what happened. If something does go wrong, which actually it often does, this is a place where you can look for error messages and some clues on what might have went wrong. Okay, so the output file, the leases, was added to our map here, and what you can see is that the map now has a layer that has just 5, and if we open up the attribute 5 shapes, the attribute table, you can see that we have the lease IDs and the value, the total value for each one. So it successfully dissolved these down into 5 polygons instead of all those many polygons in the stand field. I'm going to right click on it here and hit on the properties, and we'll change the symbology to distinguish them, right? So as I said, we're kind of interested in what lease, what stand would be the most profitable for us to go after. And we could just look in the attribute table, but I want to take this opportunity to show you that ArcGIS also has the ability to make graphs, and it's pretty simple. The graphs are not that sophisticated, but it's still useful. If you go up here to View and hit Graphs, and then hit Create Graphs, you will see you get another dialog box, and it's like, what type of graph do you want? Well, we want a vertical bar graph. You can see there's different things, histograms and box plots, scatter plots, pie charts, all this stuff. So we're just going to stick with this one. And then it wants to know the value to use, right? And so we're going to use our sum of our stand value. And there it goes. It populates it right away. Then after you do that, we don't want to add a legend to it because these are just single values. And we'll click next. It'll take you to another screen. And here you can change the title. Like we can change it to like lease values. We can add a footer if you want. I can't spell. And maybe like in millions of dollars. Then you can see these are showing up now. And then like I'm going to turn off some of the stand value here. And so that makes us a little chart. And you can see here that stand F has the highest value. It's up around $1.5 million. So that it clearly shows you. And it may be no surprise. That looks like it might be the largest stand as well, right? But we're interested in examining it. So that's the one we're going to select. One last thing here on the charts, okay, is if you right click on the chart, you can add it to the layout. And so now, if it automatically takes us to the layout view. You can see it's a window, and you can change the size of it, and if you want to edit it, you can get in there and edit it. And then we'll close that down. Okay. All right, so that was a little bit of a sidetrack there. I want to go back to the geoprocessing, and so I'm going to go to our next file here, and this is this will have our leases displayed here, A, B, C, D, F, and then it also has a new layer added that is called the streams layer, right? So one of the things that is of interest to us is there are certain requirements to provide a buffer around streams, and so we want to be able to look at the streams in stand F. So if I click over here on my up in my table of contents and list by selection, I'm going to turn off the streams layer so I can select my stands, and I'm going to click my selection tool, and I should be able to get stand F. There you go. So stand F now with the leases in F is highlighted, and then I'm going to right click on that layer. And it is, what I want to do here is create a layer from selected features. There it is. Okay, so that quickly added a new layer. If we go to our table of contents, there's our leases selection. I can turn off the leases here and drag this down under the streams. And so now we've got our leases selection, isolated in a new layer of data, but now our streams don't match. So what we're going to do is we're going to clip the streams to match the stand. And to do that, we're going to go up to the geoprocessing menu, and we're going to hit clip, right? Now, if you want to see this in the ARC toolbox instead, it's in analysis tools under extract. And you can select either one. It really doesn't matter that much. Our input feature is going to be streams. And then we're going to clip that to our leases selection. And then we got to tell it where to go again. And we'll call this one streams F. for the F stand, and that should be all we have to do. Let's see what happens. And we hit OK, and so that was also a successful operation. If I turn off the streams, you can see, okay, we have clipped the stream layer to fit our leases selection. And if I open up the attribute table here, you can kind of see, well, you know, it has intelligence in terms of it has this buffer. What, you know, if the stream has spawning, you need a greater buffer than if it doesn't have fish spawning. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, all right. One more here to get ready for analysis, and open up the next version of this that we have saved for us. And this one will show our leases F, and it's got another layer called goshawk nests. Okay, so what we've got here is some locations where goshawk nests, they are a protected species, so we can't log near their nest, and so we wanted to know what the buffer is around their nest. And once again, we have a layer here that, you know, has nests that are outside of our area. So we want to narrow that down. And this time we're going to use a select by location instead of using the clip tool. We could use the clip tool, no problem. But just to illustrate this here, we want to select the features from the goshawk nests, right? And then we want to make sure in our sources layer that we're using leases F. And in this case, we want it to target features that are completely within the source layer. There it is, completely within. Hit apply there. So there's 4 of those, and you hit OK, right? And then, you know, if I right click on the goshawk's nest, I can go to data and I can go export data. And it says, okay, we want the selected features from the source layer's data. And we'll call this one nests F. And then we'll add that to the map, and I'm going to turn off the original layer. And so you can see 4 dots were added here. They're all within our stands F. And the only difference here is we've lost the symbology, and I'm going to show you a quick little way to get that back. If you hit properties here and go to symbology, right? And you can see we got the default symbol here. If we hit import, we can select the layer we want, goshawk's nest, hit OK, and it'll bring in that symbol that we lost, and just hit apply, and you are good to go, right? So if we add our streams layer now we have all the information that we need to start the geospatial analysis of the value of the lumber in this stand. And that's what we're going to do in the next lesson, is start analyzing spatial data.